As the security environment surrounding Japan is becoming increasingly severe, JGSDF will work through its first major transformation in JGSDF history in order to realize a dynamic joint defense force initiated under the NDPG for more effective deterrence and countermeasures. First, in order to facilitate joint operations and Japan-US bilateral operations, a new Ground Central Command will provide unified nationwide command over ground units and specialize in coordination with maritime, air, and U.S. forces. The command structure of each regional army will also be reviewed based on its own particulars, so as to become more battle-oriented, maintain close ties with local authorities, and lay the foundations for operations. In the pursuit of a dynamic joint defense force, we will build an adaptive Agile Ground Defense Force based on a foundation of units positioned in advance, which can rapidly deploy in phased sequence for effective deterrence and response. Relocating tank units from Honshu to Hokkaido and Kyushu, and deploying new mobile combat vehicles to Honshu are part of the transformation efforts to drastically review organization and equipment for optimizing the force structure from an operational point of view. We will now present the roles JGSDF will play in joint operations under the NDPG. In order to quickly respond to contingencies in a nation comprised of over 6,000 islands and surrounded by open waters, we must improve our capabilities to maintain constant and multi-layered surveillance in wide areas and to detect any warning signs at an early stage. Monitoring of vessels in the surrounding waters with JMSDF surveillance aircraft, escort ships, and submarines. Monitoring of the surrounding airspace with JASDF radar sites and AWACS. Scrambling of fighters against unidentified aircraft which may be violating the airspace. And JGSDF constantly conducts monitoring with its coast observation units and unmanned aerial vehicles. There are 3 key steps to defending remote islands: positioning units under normal circumstances in advance, rapidly deploying powerful units, and committing amphibious units to recapture invaded islands. To avoid occurrence of incidents and to secure seamless initial responses in the vast Southwestern Islands region, which extends in length of 1,400 kilometers, it is imperative to position security forces and logistics support facilities on these remote islands from peacetime. Therefore, the capabilities of the 15th Brigade, which has the responsibility of defending the Southwestern Islands, will be strengthened, and newly formed coastal observation units will be positioned on those islands, which provide continuous and constant surveillance in response to the current security environment. Next, once signs of an imminent invasion onto these islands are detected, with sea and air superiority maintained, powerful units will rapidly deploy in phased sequence to effectively deter and respond to the threat. JGSDF will deploy an advance party with helicopters, followed by airlift deployment in the first phase, sea lift deployment in the second phase, and reinforcements in the third phase, to resolve the situations as quickly as possible. For this reason, we will create rapid deployment divisions and brigades equipped with mobile combat vehicles for enhanced mobility, also improving air mobility and enlarging training for rapid deployment. In the event of remote islands being occupied by invaders, amphibious operations supported by joint fires will be conducted to recapture those islands. JGSDF will introduce amphibious vehicles and tilt-rotor aircraft and create an amphibious rapid deployment brigade. JSDF are determined to take all possible measures against attacks on remote islands with this three-step response. Despite the efforts of the international community for non-proliferation, ballistic missiles and weapons of mass destruction continue to spread in the world. In the vicinity of Japan, there exist countries which deploy a large number of ballistic missiles capable of loading nuclear weapons, or a country which repeatedly conducts ballistic missile tests and nuclear tests. The threat is becoming more imminent. Japan's ballistic missile defense is based on a multi-layered system consisting of exo-atmospheric interception by Aegis destroyers and the interception at the re-entry by Patriot PAC-3s. JASDF Patriot PAC-3s are sea-lifted by JMSDF transport vessels and commercial ferries, while JGSDF supports their deployment by arranging their embarkation and debarkation at airports and seaports, and makes the joint operations possible by protecting the PAC-3s from guerrillas and special forces. With industrial and population centers concentrated in urban areas, and with many key facilities such as nuclear power plants located along coastal areas, infiltration or attacks by even small numbers of guerrilla or special forces pose a serious threat. JMSDF and JASDF monitor Japan's surrounding waters with vessels and aircraft to detect early and interdict at sea any ships or submarines which guerrillas or special forces may use for infiltration, while JGSDF deploys its ISR units from camps throughout Japan to block their infiltration from coastal areas. In addition to deploying ISR units, JGSDF also provides security for key facilities, including nuclear power plants, and JMSDF, JASDF, and U.S. military bases. If guerrillas or special forces are detected, artillery fires, mortar fires, and air support will be massed on them, and infantry, mobile combat vehicles, and tank units will encircle and destroy them. If guerrillas or special forces take civilian hostages, JGSDF Special Operations units will conduct rescue operations. If ballistic missiles are launched and should impact on Japan's territories, with their debris and toxic propellants hitting the soil, and if guerrillas or special forces conduct nuclear, biological, or chemical attacks, NBC weapon defense units will deploy to detect such attacks and conduct decontamination if required in order to protect civilians. In case of any casualties, medical care will be provided with medical evacuation and decontamination. JGSDF will also respond to the increasing threat of cruise missiles with surface-to-air missiles. In the face of unexpected attacks of ballistic or cruise missiles, guerrillas, and special forces, JGSDF is strengthening its ties with relevant authorities, improving its equipment, and positioning its units all over the country to defend the nation. 2011, the Great East Japan Earthquake. 2013, landslides at Izu Oshima following Typhoon Waifa. 2014, Mount Ontake eruption. In Japan, which is under constant threat of natural disasters, there is an increasing concern for possible great earthquakes along the Nankai Trough or in the Tokyo metropolitan area. In order to respond to such large-scale disasters or nuclear disasters, it is necessary to improve initial response capabilities, deploy units rapidly, and sustain long-term operations. In order to improve its disaster response capabilities, JGSDF will continue to strengthen its ties with local authorities, conduct a variety of training and exercises, and develop plans based on the lessons learned from the Great East Japan Earthquake. Under the NDPG and the policy of proactive contribution to peace based on the principles of international cooperation, JGSDF is to strengthen both bilateral and multinational cooperative relations and will conduct international peace cooperation activities even more proactively. JGSDF will promote bilateral and multinational training and exercises in the Asia-Pacific to demonstrate our nation's will and marked ability in stabilizing the region, while building and strengthening cooperative ties with its allies and partners. Promotion of defense cooperation and exchange in order to further improve mutual understanding and trust with foreign nations and international agencies. Capacity building in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, bomb disposal, and military medicine, designed to enhance developing countries' own capabilities in order to improve the global security environment. Anti-piracy measures in Somalia and the Gulf of Aden, the cornerstone in naval traffic security. Safe repatriation of Japanese nationals overseas in case of contingencies such as terrorism. Countermeasures against increasingly active attacks in cyberspace. Use of space technologies for improving information gathering capabilities with satellites. Through a wide variety of projects, in order to quickly respond to any contingencies at home and abroad, we will build an adaptive Agile Ground Defense Force, rapidly deployed in phased sequence for effective deterrence and response, so as to bring forth a dynamic joint defense force. We are resolved to create a tough and resilient JGSDF, capable of quickly responding and completing any mission, anytime, thus defending our people's lives and property and the territorial integrity of Japan.